Rotarians, yes, welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Walt Kuno, president of your club, Paulus Harris Fellow, and glad to be here. Glad you're here. This is going to be an exciting meeting. Now, for the housekeeping, first of all, turn off and silence your phones so they don't ding. And then if you're having lunch, please put your lunch ticket there. Providing our invocation today is Corey Miller, my friend from the Cabbage Patch Settlement House, executive director there. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Walt. So why are we here? That is a deep existential question. And while we're not going to focus on the deepest part of that at this moment, why we are here is because we believe in community and we believe in service. And so with all of that in mind, let us pray. Gracious and loving God, with whom we live and move and have our being, we give thanks that we can come here together as a physical reminder of our desire to focus on service above self. That mission we share as Rotarians is born of the selflessness with which we were created. We come to this meeting with gratitude because the honor and blessing of service is truly a gift and one that makes us appreciate and understand our purpose. In a way of thinking, all space is sacred space and all ground is holy ground. It's as Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote, "Earth is crammed with heaven and every common bush afire with God, that only the one who sees it takes off their shoes." And so may we always seek and see your presence. And may the words of all of our mouths and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Corey. I hope Dan Harledge is out in the hall. Is Dan walking in as we speak? He doesn't look that way. Kevin, can you come up here and do the pledge and the four-way test without any prior notice? Yes, you can. I knew you could.
Get the words?
Yeah.
I'm not as tall as this guy is. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the four-way test, which is when we think, say, and do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Dan. I mean, Kevin. All right. We're glad you're here. Glad everybody's here. Yes. Okay. Now, I'd like to welcome a very special guest today. Y'all can be seated, please. We're going to do announcements, introduction of guests, all that kind of stuff later in the meeting. Because Governor Beshear is on the line, we don't want to keep him waiting any more than we have to. It is my distinct privilege today, and I've been looking forward to this day since I was president-elect, to introduce our governor, the Honorable Andy Beshear. Governor Andy, don't worry.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I wish I could be there with you in person today, but certainly isn't it great to be able to be back in person for events like the Rotary. I want to thank you for your service to the Commonwealth, to the city of Louisville and the communities that you are in. Your group across Kentucky does incredible things in helping people, especially in their times of need, but also is so supportive within communities about meeting its needs and oftentimes helping those our faith. And I appreciate the prayer I heard at the end of. Tell us that we're supposed to serve, and that's the lost, the lonely, and the left behind. In fact, I was down at the Mayfield Rotary about 3 weeks ago talking about the progress we have made since the tornadoes there. The work they and the regional Rotaries have done is nothing short of phenomenal. Adding extra help and assistance to those that need it and finding areas and groups that might not have gotten the assistance they need. And so we are really grateful. I was asked primarily today to talk about the flooding in eastern Kentucky. And let me just start by saying, just like the tornadoes, none of us have ever seen anything like what happened in eastern Kentucky, including folks that had lived there for 50 plus years. Now, flooding may be a way of life in some parts of eastern Kentucky, but no one had ever experienced or even fathomed the level of devastation and death that this flooding event caused. Thus far, we've lost 39 Kentuckians, each children of God, loved by their families, irreplaceable in their communities. That's likely to go up because we have at least 2 women that are missing and that have been missing for a long time. At this point, we're just hoping that we can give some type of closure to their families. In addition to those that are lost and that we grieve with, our Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund has paid for every single one of those funerals, because nobody, after being through this, should have to worry about that or seek reimbursement months later. It's the least we can do is grieve together. But we also have thousands of people that, only have the clothes on their back. You say that, we all say that a lot, more so than I think the reality has ever been. But when you talk to a grandmother like I did at Buckhorn, that had been pulled through the window of her car, thankfully open, as it was swept away, totally lost her house. The only thing she had were the clothes on her back. And when clothes kind of started pouring in, we had to ask people to stop because people didn't have a place to take them. Didn't have luggage to put them in. This is more so than just about any natural disaster we've seen, something that has wiped everything away from individuals. But let me say, the emergency response in those first 2 days, 3 days, is one of the most exceptional that we have seen, I think, in the history of the United States. Because an unprecedented flood was met with an unprecedented emergency response. We only have lost, to date, 39 people. Contrast that with over 1,300 people rescued, pulled up off the roof of their house by Kentucky's National Guard, Tennessee's National Guard, West Virginia's National Guard, the Kentucky State Police. And let me tell you, we have the best National Guard in the country, bar none. They've proved it day in and day out. Maybe even in our history. But their work, along with others, saved countless of lives. And then there was all of our first responders. And that's everything from the first responders in the area to Lexington and Louisville's fire and rescue teams. Lexington headed that way, being closer. We were trying to send them to Hazard. They couldn't get there. We said, "Where are you?" They said, "We're in Breathitt County." We said, "Put your boat in the water." And they made about 60 saves over the first 3 to 4 hours. And for every one of those rescues, neighbors rescued other neighbors. I don't know if you've heard the stories, whether it's one of our state representatives, Angie Hatton, in a kayak, helping people get to safety. Or there was so much water in Whitesburg, a kid was able to get a jet ski. I'm not kidding you, in the middle of a subdivision, and was able to save at least 10 lives. Really incredible how when the worst hits, we stop arguing and we just try to save and protect and help as many people as possible. With many lessons learned from the West, we knew immediately we needed to open up our state parks and other shelters to take people in. Our state parks are a crown jewel of Kentucky. We need to invest in them more. But they're also, according to the CEO of the Red Cross, perhaps our best unique emergency response, and one of the best she's seen in the country. It's now going to become something that they talk to others. It was bringing people in Jenny Wiley in Floyd County, and then, my goodness, between transportation, Department of Water, and the utility company out there getting Buckhorn, which, the entire water system in Buckhorn is wiped out. But getting that state park open, between them now, we have almost 400 families and even more in travel trailers. So the emergency response was about search and rescue. It was just getting a roof over people's head and getting them fed, and even folks that had lost everything. I was in a gym that had about 100 people that played basketball with kids, because they were still being kids, which was pretty special to see in the midst of all of it. Now, we had to get people safe. But once that piece ended, it was time to move from our emergency response to our stabilization phase. And that's where we are right now. I will say in the stabilization phase, we were ahead of where we were in the West because we still had resources from it. So we had 100 travel trailers that we had used or didn't have to use in the West that we had on site within days. As of today, I've got my Kentucky update in just a little bit. I think we have 94 already there and hooked up. We're bringing in at least 100 more on top of that. And we'll have close to 1,000 people and certainly a ton of families that for the months to come until we move from stabilization to that rebuilding, we'll likely call these travel trailers a home. But again, this is meant to be intermediate and not permanent housing. If people are living in these decades from now, then our next phase will not have gone as well as it absolutely must go. The other piece, or another piece in stabilization that we have seen, oh my goodness, possibly the best response in the nation is power. 95% of power is restored in the area. Think about the force of this water and how much there was and how that could wreak havoc among the utilities. We're down to 107 total outages, down from 27,000 at one point. We only have 647 service connections without water. That's down from 40,000 right after. Cell phone service has been restored. We still have a lot of people under boil water advisory, but how quickly all of that was done in response to a disaster of this magnitude, again, I'm not sure we've ever seen before. And as we look around the table at each other during our meetings, we all feel very lucky and very blessed that so many people were there working so hard. And in the moments of darkness, the moments of light were those folks that showed up. I'll never forget about day 3, and I haven't slept in 3 days, or certainly not slept well. I get a call from Kathy Onan, who is the mayor of Mayfield. And she said, I want you to know our police chief, Jeremy Creasy, the guy I've gotten to know pretty well, has loaded up his ambulance and has headed east. And he wanted me to give you and the Commonwealth a message that Eastern Kentucky was there for Western Kentucky in their time of need. And they were going to be there, Jeremy was going to be there for them too. I'll give you another example. The city of Marion is under a water crisis in Western Kentucky. We've got it stabilized. We are about to get a hookup to Sturgis, which hopefully will at least be the medium-term solution. They sent 2 of their water utility workers during a state of emergency over to Eastern Kentucky to help. Mayor Hazard yesterday in a meeting read out all of the water folks, including Jefferson and Oldham County and others that have come down. This should have been 5 months to get most of Hazard back up. And it was 20-something days. And that is because people from all over the Commonwealth bring in whatever they had, bring in extra pipe, bring in extra vehicles that they can surplus, all showed up for each other. I'm so proud to be the governor of a state where we will sacrifice for each other. We will give those that have lost everything, whatever we have in our hands, to help get them back up on their feet. Then the last piece, or at least one other big piece of the stabilization phase is the FEMA aid. Now first, let me give you the good. We got a presidential disaster declaration and individual assistance approved to most counties in record time. In fact, it happened so quickly we didn't have people on the ground to process claims, and we're grateful for that. Now when the individual assistance came online, what we saw is many of the cultural problems that FEMA's had in the past, present, in response to a disaster where nobody's insured. And so this might be the only money outside of charitable donations that people can qualify for. And this is one of the only areas in the modern world where if you have an incomplete, you think about ordering a pizza, if you don't put in your address, it doesn't go through and it takes you back up. In FEMA, you get denied. And so folks that had already been knocked down, in many ways were getting kicked as they were down. I will tell you that we have been very aggressive with FEMA, and we are seeing results. They're doing about 6 things they've never done before, including calling every single person who's been denied, giving their people on the ground the authority to reopen claims without an appeal, that people can address them. They are texting every single person that they haven't been able to get in contact with. They're going to homes or where homes used to be, where they haven't been able to get in contact with people. But the most important part is, for the first time in the history of FEMA, they've given their people on the ground who are amazing. These are people sitting in communities, living in communities that have been hit so hard. They're giving them approval authority to where they can actually approve claims right there, right then. I think what we are doing is rewriting with them how FEMA responds. Now, we still have a long way to go. We've now had over 6,000 applications get approved and at least get some money headed to them. It's about $48 million of federal FEMA aid that's come in through their different programs. And where we set them up in disaster recovery centers, you can also get your driver's license. You can replace your marriage certificate. You can get a deed, hopefully, from your house. That idea of a one-stop shop, to where if FEMA says you need another document, hopefully you can walk over to another state table and get it right there. You can also sign up for disaster unemployment assistance and SNAP benefits, things that people need. So I will say we're pushing FEMA hard. Since I really started pushing them, we've gone from about 37% acceptance to 51%. That's a good step, but we got a lot further to go, and I am not happy with 51%. I remember what my parents told me after a test, just once. We always had about 50%, and what grade that is. So we will continue to push, and yes, Steve Beshear was a difficult taskmaster, a whole lot. The final phase, and it's going to be one of the most challenging we've ever seen, is the rebuilding phase. Now, we've got some people, if they go back to where they were, are in harm's way. We've got the challenge that to get to many of these homes, you need a private bridge which has been totally washed out. The total that you can qualify for FEMA individual assistance is $37,900. The average cost of one of these bridges is about $55,000. We have schools that are going to need to be entirely rebuilt, that can be rebuilt in a place that is safer. So in many ways, what we're going to have in front of us is rebuilding towns that coal companies built almost 100 or 100 plus years ago. It is a major challenge. It's going to require innovation. It's going to require careful presentation, because, listen, a lot of people, where their home was is maybe the only patch of dirt that their family has owned for decades. It's important to them. If we are going to ask people to live somewhere different, they can't be carrying new debt that they didn't have in their former home. So the challenge in front of us is significant, but we are seeing from local leaders like magistrates all the way up here to the governor's office that we do have a shared vision about what we at least have to try. And what I'd ask all of you all is the people of Eastern Kentucky are going to need you for the next several years, not just in the present. Everybody appreciates so much everything that's been donated and getting water there and the tractor trailers that come. But as we look at the future and where and how we rebuild, people are going to need help, and they're going to need money, and they're going to need a lot of assistance from the rest of the state. We've got a chance, I think, to do something that nobody has ever seen before. And if we do it right, we won't continue to see the deep population of Eastern Kentucky, a place that mined the coal, that launched the Industrial Revolution, helped us win 2 world wars, and in many instances with the changing energy economy has been left behind. If we rebuild this the right way, maybe we can bring new hope, new opportunity to these families and to the community. So I was really proud. I started yesterday with the groundbreaking of the next phase of the Mountain Parkway. Like I-64, a little bit to the north, the Mountain Parkway is the main artery. And we are, after this Wolfe County section, going to be 4-lane all the way to Salyers, which is going to open up a ton of opportunities there. That's putting $90 million of construction work into the region, most of which was hit. We were able to provide $3 million of water and sewer help to Breathitt County that was hit so hard, and we are going to continue to invest. And yesterday we started a special session, one that thus far hasn't been bipartisan, it's been nonpartisan. And it's about creating a fund that is primarily going to help counties, cities, utilities to make sure they don't go bankrupt or have to raise people's rates as we are responding to the roads and the water systems and the rest that have been washed out. Thus far, it's been a very good session. We think we will likely finish up on Friday. At the beginning of this, you may have heard me say, I wish I understood why this is happening to us over and over. But I was up in Northern Kentucky for an opening of a company called Summit Packaging. Its CEO had played 6 years in the NFL, which I thought was pretty neat. Andy was a CEO. It made me wonder what I've done with my life. But he had this thing on his Twitter page, because I wanted to bring more jobs. I wanted to make sure I was talking to him about things he liked. And it said, God saves his strongest challenge. God saves his most difficult challenges for his strongest soldiers. That's not a me, that's a we. Maybe we continue to get hit the way we are because we are strong, loving people that care about each other. Maybe we can take it just a little bit more than others. So that was a not so brief update. And you got Aaron Thompson, who is one of my favorite human beings on earth, someone that is a proud advocate of higher education, lives out what it can mean to a family. He and my dad, both first generation college graduates. The programs we're doing together from Everybody Counts, which saw a really big rise thanks to Evolve 502 in Jefferson County, high school seniors going to college. Is really, really exciting. The GED waiver of the fee has so many more people taking it. We just announced an ACT retake that our rising seniors are going to be able to do, which typically ends up with them getting more scholarship money or the others. He's a great individual. He's helping to get really great things done. Aaron, that's not meant to be your intro, mainly just because I enjoy working with you.
Governor Andy, do you have one more second?
I do.
Great. Because this is now a post-speech introduction, because this is a personal thank you from me and my family, and it's also a thank you from Rotary that I wanted to share. So while this is an introduction, I got the microphone, I'm president, and I kind of get to do stuff like this. I hope you laugh or not. So, Governor Andy, don't worry, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. All kidding aside, however, Governor Andy calmed many of us in the Commonwealth during the COVID crisis. At our house, the TV was turned to wave in the late afternoon when we heard that familiar voice of Governor Andy. We stopped what we were doing and listened. I personally believe that the governor saved tens of thousands of Kentuckians because of his actions. Now a little fun. I had friends of mine from around the country ask me who this guy is. I was happy to report that Governor Andy and I had some common interests. We're both Vanderbilt Commodores, and I knew y'all would know I would get that in. Now Andy was magna cum laude, and I can't even pronounce that, and Phi Beta Kappa at Vanderbilt. He goes on to the University of Virginia Law School and makes law review and is also a Dean Scholar. Governor Andy practiced law in Washington, where he met his wife and our First Lady, Brittany, there, and then moved back to the Commonwealth to practice law here in Louisville, and then became Attorney General, continuing his public service. The Beshear family could be seen in my neighborhood countless times because they were friends with our backdoor neighbors, John and Lisa Myers. So, and they came to my house, which is probably not memorable, when Lynn and I hosted Vanderbilt summer send-off parties for first-year Vanderbilt students going off and meeting families from around here that had the same interest. Governor Andy has more than a soft spot for our youth, and he shows it in all that he does. And he reflects his values of faith, family, and public service. He just talked to us on the disasters that befell Eastern and Western Kentucky. And here's the Rotary part. Rotary, with our motto of service above self, jumped in, rolled up our sleeves in major ways, first in the West and then in the East. We respond quickly, we raise money, we shovel, we clean, we restore hope to our neighbors. That's what Rotary does. Rotary is also getting ready to announce our West Louisville Housing Initiative, and Governor Beshear, if you haven't heard about this, you need to, where Rotary in response to the racial unrest in Louisville, has decided to be the spearhead of raising $5 million for housing in the 9 named neighborhoods in the West Louisville for first-time homeowners who cannot qualify under normal circumstances. That's 70 new families will have homes in an evergreen fund. As they pay them off, the next family goes in. It is a huge deal. Luke Schmidt is here. Luke's over there. Luke and everybody at the CIC did this. Denise is right there. Thank you. I mean, this is a big deal, Governor. Rotary's rolling up our sleeves again. We're serving. We're with you, and we will get through this together. Thank you. All right. Now for the rest of the program. All right. It's time to welcome our guests. Rotarians, please take this time to introduce yourself first, then your guest, and please stand to be recognized when you are announced. I have a visiting Rotarian, Joseph Riopel, from the Boca Raton Club, and Joseph's right here in the front. Stand up, Joseph. Wave. There's Joseph. He got on his mobile Rotary app, found our club, came today, and he's looking to join, so I think this would be a great place to do. Also, I have Marlene Cole over here, and I meant to do that for Governor Andy because he talked about Evolve 502. Marlene's right here, Executive Director of Evolve 502, and what they do is every JCPS senior that will fill out an application gets a 2-year college degree, or 2-year, associate's degree from Jefferson Technical Community College, which we've been partnering with Evolve 502 for our program at Western and Iroquois and support that in a big way. Welcome, Marlon. And now, Alice. Thank you. Yeah, there we go.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Now can you hear me? Yes. Hi, I'm Alice Bridges, and I'm really pleased to introduce 2 guests from New Directions Housing Corporation today. Dustin Bishop, who is the Resident Services Administrator, and Jasmine Nukes, who is the Director of Resident Programs. They lead an effort at New Directions called iRise, which is providing pathways to opportunity for people who would normally be caught in the rut of a benefits cliff. And they're really interested in what Dr. Thompson has to say today about those opportunities for their residents.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary Dryden, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Dr. Renee Wagner, who's Vice President of Academic Affairs at Jefferson Community and Technical College. And today's speaker is very near and dear to our hearts, and we're looking forward to what Dr. Thompson has to say.
Thank you, Gary.
President Walt, I'm Mitch Rue here. I'd like to introduce Mark Jones, who is from our Louisville Rotary Promise Scholarship, Western High School, 2nd class, has completed his degree at U of L and is now working for ADP, where he's been recognized recently. Pleased to have him.
I'd like to introduce 2 of my guests. First is Curtis Owens. Please stand. He is a top producing real estate agent with 29 years full-time experience, and he was the immediate past president of NARAB Louisville. Thank you for coming. And then my next guest is Tiffany Williams. She is the current president of NARAB, which stands for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and it is the oldest trade organization of African Americans. Back when African Americans were not allowed to be called realtors, it was actually illegal. And so we came up with our own name. We called ourselves Realtists. And so that organization has still been around, even though it is legal now to be called a realtor. And she is the president, and she holds homage to that history. Thank you for coming.
President Walt, Jerry Greenwell here, and I'm pleased to introduce my guest, my wife, Ann.
Good afternoon, President Walt. I'm here to introduce my guest, Gene Hammond, and we're both looking forward to hearing both of the speakers today.
afternoon, President Walt and fellow Rotarians. I'm Rick Smith with the Council on Postsecondary Education, and glad this is my home Rotary chapter. I've got two guests. One I'll introduce in just a minute, but the other, I want to introduce Lisa McKinley, my colleague from the council. Lisa works in the Public Office and is a great asset to Dr. Thompson and myself.
Thank you, Rick, and we'll play some interlude music as Rick comes up here to introduce our guest. So, thank you, Rick.
I was trying to be funny, but I'm old, so that little run, I have to catch my breath now. It's funny, it's hard to follow the governor when he does an introduction, but, and I have a sheet, and I don't really need it because it's not often that you get an opportunity to introduce your hero. And I don't use the word hero lightly, because we are in for a treat today, not only from his speaking, but just from his service to the Commonwealth of Kentucky and through to the country as a whole, not only as an educator, but as a diversity, equity, and inclusion leader, writer, and advocate. Dr. Thompson's pretty much done it all. Now, I guess he is the president of the Council on Postsecondary Education. The governor certainly shared that, but also I want to share that he's passionate about all Kentuckians having an equal opportunity to improve their lives through post-secondary education. He's risen from very humble starting, which he will share in his story, to the leader of post-secondary education in Kentucky as an African American. That itself deserves a round of applause. I have to say this, Dr. Thompson holds a bachelor's degree in political science and sociology from Eastern Kentucky University, a master's degree and a doctorate in sociology from the University of Kentucky. But if I don't say this, I wouldn't have a job. He is a proud graduate of Clay County High School. So without further ado, let me bring up to the podium my boss and my friend, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Rick. They get Rick and me mixed up all the time, and I want to be clear to everyone that I am younger and better looking. Maybe not. Good to see everybody. I love Rotary. I'm a Rotarian myself. And the reason why, the 4-week test, true enough, but it's really just where you put your heart at and you put your wallet into it. I mean, what you're doing with Western Iroquois is only a classic small example of the magnitude by which you have made impact, not only in Louisville, but Rotary around the world. And so I'm proud to say that. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I do want to just bring mention to the reason why we have these meetings. We have these meetings not necessarily together as a community of Rotarians to talk about the great things we're doing, but we have these meetings as a way to challenge each other to do it better. And so that in itself is great. So thank you for the invitation. Good to be here. The governor's right. He and I work closely together. I don't know if you can figure that out, but we work closely together in many ways at many times. I make no bones about the idea that my job on earth, that I believe God put me on earth to do, is to really take whatever little talents that I have to put it to use for those that are in need of it the most. So I'm proud of that statement. Is college for everyone? Which is an interesting question that if I ask each one of you individually, you would say, probably not, but I want to make sure that I go to college and my kids go to college, right? I mean, because it has become a rote way of us thinking about the value of higher education. Isn't it an emotional element by which we use our intelligence at that level to think about what it would mean if we never did? Or if our kids never? Now, some of you are going to say, well, I didn't go to college, look at my success story. But then I want you to reach around the room and imagine how many other people could make that statement. So I'm going to give you the answer to this question. Is college for everyone? Yes. But I don't say it just as a way of hyperbole. I say it as a proven fact. I am a statistician by trade, so I do a lot of work on showing high correlation and high causation. In order for us to have a strong economy, you've seen these latest data. It's not just what kind of tax breaks you give a state. The research shows that it's whether or not you have a highly educated workforce to do what they need to do if they come to our state. So the direct correlation is you have a strong economy, you have a highly educated workforce. You can't have a highly educated workforce without having a stronger higher ed system, and you can't really truly have a stronger higher ed system unless you build a heck of an early childhood system and a heck of an early K-12. So this is a systematic process. Am I changing the buttons here? Ah, all right.
I did.
You did? I'm just going to tell you how talented I am with technology, by the way. I'm officially the head of technology for Kentucky higher ed system. I don't even know how to use a PowerPoint. I start this conversation out, and I'll talk about Eastern Kentucky in a second. I start this conversation, well, not a cute kid. I mean, think about that. I used to be good looking. You know, that's my mom and my daddy. My father was an illiterate coal miner. We were sharecroppers. And I was born on a sharecropper's farm. My mother was the educator of the family, came from northern Alabama in the 1930s, the sweep of people moving from the coal mines of northern Alabama to eastern Kentucky because it was a more accepting place. Who would have ever thought? But that's how my mother met my father. I just tell you this quickly, and then I'll get to the real stuff you want to hear about. My mother met my father in 1937 when my mother, a 17-year-old beauty, traveled to eastern Kentucky, Rowdy and Sassafras Holler, and Perry County. They were just on the border there. And my father was working in a black coal miners camp, and my grandfather was a coal miner, but he was also a Baptist minister. And my grandfather decided that he was going to do what any good black minister would do if he moves into a new community. He was going to build a church, but he had to have a congregation first. So he would do what any good black Baptist minister would do, is ask his wife, grandmother Bertha, and my mother to cook up some chicken one Sunday afternoon, and he would actually preach to the black coal miners. So my father came down out of the coal mining camps, went and had service and food, and my mother was there cooking. 3 days later, my mother and father got married. And I said, Daddy. And my father was 36 years old, right? My mother's 17. I said, Daddy, what's up with this, man? I mean, you're a single man this long. Why would you do that? He said, son, quite simply this. He said, there's two things that I know the reason why I needed to marry your mama. I said, what? He said, first of all, she was the first black woman that I knew that wasn't kin to me. Which made some sense to me. And the second one was that she could really cook chicken. And they stayed married until he passed away. But my father was illiterate, mother had a great education, but they preached to me the value of education even though they had no idea what college was. Some of the things, we right now have a 47.8% college going rate from K-12 into a Kentucky college or university. We'll never build this economy that way. It's about 53% as a whole, losing about 5% to other states. But bottom line, there is a lack of what is perceived to be the value of education. I think you have to help me here. It's not working for me. And so when I came into this spot, by the way, just to let you know, who knows what the Council on Postsecondary Education is? I just realized many people don't. Council on Postsecondary Education was created in 1997 under Governor Patton when he did the Post-Secondary Reform Act. The legislature, of course, did it, but he pushed it. And it created two big items. It created the Kentucky Community and Technical College System, which JCTC is a part of it, and it created the Council on Post-Secondary Education. We're a coordinating board, but they used to have another coordinating board called the Council on Higher Education. The difference is that we're what they call a super coordinating board. I don't know what that means. No, I do. What it means is that we set the strategic agenda for all of our public universities and two-year colleges and two-year colleges. We set the tuition, we set the funding, we do all those things. So we programs, so we have a little more power in that respect. But I take my job of coordination very seriously. So we set this goal of having 60% of our citizens in Kentucky with some credential that mattered. Doesn't have to be a 4-year credential, because if you go to a community or technical college, anything beyond high school, that's college, let me be clear. You know, so it's a part of the nomenclature we have to change too, about college isn't just a 4-year degree. So 60% of our citizens will have to have a post-secondary attainment by 2030 for us to maintain a thriving economy. If we don't get there, so this number just wasn't picked out of the air. It was highly researched and correlated with the future of the economy. And so our goal is to get there, and I'm proud to say over the last several years, we have moved, when I took over this position, we were at 42%. And you all know how much it takes to move 1 percentage point. I'm not talking about percent, but 1 percentage point. We're now at almost 50%. We're actually moving educational attainment by percentage points faster than almost any other state. And I'll share some other news here in a second. I'm proud of that. But we are going down in our pipeline, in our funnel, in the beginning of our funnel, and getting more high school students. We're going down with our adult learners that we need to get retrained, reskilled, and sometimes first training. I just left Marty Polio before coming here, and we're working with JCPS to help design the system also to where they can accelerate what they're trying to do. But we are we'll slow down. We won't continue this rate unless we have some other intervening variables. This is where our employers come in. This is where, the relationships we build with P20. So when I took over higher ed, one of the things I did was rechange and recharge higher education to think a little bit different than they've ever thought. One is that we were going to, instead of blaming K-12, we were going to create a big P20 system where we were going to actually lead and work with K-12 to do what we need to do. No more blaming. The second thing we did was to create a strong workforce and economic development shop for higher ed. In the past, we have an economic development unit in the state and a workforce unit, no doubt. But higher ed has to become a co-driver of this conversation. And you may have read that even the healthcare collaborative we started as an example where we bring employers and higher ed people together to co-design the curriculum, to not only fulfill the needs of our workforce today, but for our future. So that was what we became, that's two of the big elements that we're dedicated to. And I have a lot of different lives. So I'm also the chair of Baptist Health, Corporate Baptist Health System here in Kentucky and Indiana. And so the idea, you know what the pandemic did to the healthcare workers. We've got a long way to go to catch up, but we can't do it without those kind of partnerships. What do we know about this? We know that there's a return on value. I don't have to look at the Georgetown study out of DC to know this. We do our own studies. We have the best data system in the nation. I don't know if y'all know that. But we looked at our own studies, and we looked at students that when they graduated from high school, 8 years later, what happened to them? What kind of money are they making? Where are they at in the process of success? So we did our own return on investment. We've done it 2 years in a row. One had 48,000. I may be getting the numbers exactly not right, but close. Approximately 48,000 in one cohort, another 48,000 in another cohort. And we found out, sure enough, higher education pays. And this is how it pays for our Kentucky citizens, right? Just over that 8-year period of time. Now, if you actually elongated that in a longitudinal way for 20 years period of time, you're going to see it become way more in this direction. The other thing, too, for all you liberal arts degree people, did you know that when you get to about 15 years, you're actually making more than a technical degree person? Just to let you know. So all of it's important, right? So don't be frightened. But all of it's important. We cannot leave behind any of it. So people talk about which degree is more valuable than the other. I'm saying look at your data. The other thing we did along the process, first state to do it, and I'm proud of it, we did a student right to know. So on the front end, when they come out of JCPS or any of our high schools, they can look and see every major, how much normally you should borrow for that major, how much money will it make with all the jobs. I'm a sociologist. I went into business for 9 years, in higher ed, and I was pretty successful. Guess what? I knew how to communicate with people. So the idea that what we have to do with our students is to let them know what they need to know. We also look at what happened during the recession in 2008-9. By the way, since 2009, 99% of all the jobs in Kentucky will need a post-secondary credential. So, to let you know. We also, and I have this slide up here, I don't pay attention to slides very well. You also found out during the deep unemployment that 90% of the people that were unemployed did not have a higher ed credential. 90% of the people on SNAP, no higher ed credential. 92% that received some level of Medicaid, no higher ed credential. So the argument I've always posed to the legislature, and they have responded, thank goodness, is I don't, we were cut for 12 straight years. I don't tell them you cut us so much, so you need to give us more money because you cut us. I said, no, let me show you a return on investment. Every dollar you invest in us, you get a 62% return for the state. So we are a strategic investment. Invest in higher ed, and you actually won't have to pay as much out in these other areas. One will get you ultimately where you want to go. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't support those areas. That's not what I'm saying. I know we should. I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and that Saturday of the flooding, I went to Eastern Kentucky, of course. And I've been once again since. But I went of that area, and I went through Lee County, Breathitt, and so on. Devastation, unlike anything else. In my home county of Clay, we lost one person in the Oneida area due to flooding. I've never seen anything like this in Eastern Kentucky. So the idea, though, that part of what we're dealing with is not only the rebuilding, we were already dealing with a low college going rate, low college success rate. And part of it is, it's like being hit with something else. So as we look at helping triaging, part of the things we have to triage is helping people to understand that we can help you to get what you need to get even for your future. You know this. I'm all about education, raising the prosperity of the state. If you look at the population below the largest state, you'll see that Kentucky is there, right? I mean, we're in, we are in fact, I don't have it, I forgot exactly where we ranked on this, but we're low, right? But I will tell you though, the difference between the dark area that we occupy and those in the lighter area is a 15% disparity in educational attainment. At 15%. So that's why this North Star we have of 60 by 30 is important. Well, you heard me talk about the decline of college going, but also there's a decline of the mentality around the importance of higher ed. You've heard it. Everybody's talking about, which is just amazing to me. And me and the folks I hear talk about, that if college is not important, or many of those folks will have a college degree. As I said earlier, they're kids, surely they want to have. We've got to change this dialogue. That's why today you all are the start of my Why Higher Education Matters tour around the state. You are the beginning of my tour. And this is what I'm going to be doing all around the state. I'm going to be listening to people, not just talking, but I'm going to be listening to employers, to family members, and to others, as I did 4 years ago, to talk with us about how we can help them to get where they need to go. By the way, how many of you are employers in this room? How many of you are having a hard time finding employees? And when's the last time you've been to a restaurant and you saw tons of tables empty, but you're going to have to wait 25 minutes to get seated? Anybody, right? You see what's going on. But the problem is that we have plenty of jobs and we're the most robust we've ever been. But we still don't have the highly skilled, educated workforce that we need. And so a part of what we have to do, if we convince people that they need to come to our state and we'll provide them with what they need, then in fact, we will do what we need to do. I'm glad my JCPS partners are here right now because they're feeling it the worst. We have had about a 60% drop off of adult learners in our colleges and JCPS. KCTCS. Those are our footprints around the state. We have about 72 campuses around Kentucky that are servicing the community that they live in. But our goal, and it's also our most affordable system, it's a place that you should think about starting as you even move to a four-year institution. So it is important. The interesting thing on the last listening tour I did a long time ago, and I want to shut up here in a second and let you ask me questions, but we heard people say, well, I'm not college material, or I can't afford to go to college. Many people don't know we have free college in this state, right? We also heard we have Evolve 502. We got 50% of College One even with that here in Jefferson County. We still have information that we need to get to people why they can afford to go to college, but this is on our backs too, because we list the sticker price. You never will pay sticker price on campus. If you did, you're not a very good negotiator, right? But we don't list the debt price, and that's our problem. So we have to be far more transparent. So I am about being more transparent all the time. I'm going to skip through some of this to get to where we're asking. We're going to be working a lot with Rick Smith leading the way to talk about what we need to do in getting more employers engaged in this process. The example of the healthcare collaborative, once again, I got $10 million last year or this past cycle from the legislature, but healthcare themselves are probably putting in 10 times that amount to work with us to build this pipeline. It's going to take employers, business and industry, and local community leaders to make this work, because governmental officials won't be able to do this for you folks. We are going to have to build this system ourselves, and we're going to have to build it at the most localized level that we can build it. Give you some, we're going to be talking about, but we're also not just going to be helping people to get skilled up. We're going to talk about those employability skills that they need to have, such as how to communicate, work with people with different backgrounds, and so on. But I want to give you some good news too. Hopefully that's all I've got. Not too many, much better. But I'm proud to say Kentucky, we are innovative. We've been recognized for doing more innovative stuff than almost any other state. One of the other items I'm proud of is that over the last few years, 4 or 5 years, we've increased our actually credentials and degree outputs by 17%. We've increased our minoritized communities by 41%, closing gaps faster than any other state in that area. We're down about 3% in enrollment of all of our students, up about 6.1% for our minoritized communities. Our gaps in our graduation rates are going up significantly. Our graduation rates for those that are historically disenfranchised are going up more. This is all about focus, and we have to focus more on our low income. This is an area that we know we have to double down on. We have to focus more on our adult learners, and we have to focus more truly on how to build this groundswell of information to make sure that everybody, even if they come from Clay County, Kentucky, and born of a literate father in a coal mining shack, basically, that they can become the head of higher education. And this is what I'm asking you all to do with us. You already are doing it, but I'm asking us to double down on it. I'm asking you to even get to the point, I'm supposed to say this, my communications people tell me, that you jump onto our Twitter and help us to send out information about why higher education matters. I'm happy to take any questions in any whatever time I have left. I'm probably almost out of time, as my
So we're turning to make the way to the back. We've got time for a couple of questions. I have two of my own, because this is a conversation that's near and dear to me and worked in for a long time. The first is, you're talking about everybody needs a college education, which means anything after high school, but many of us grew up when we had vocational schools, And so you're going, people don't need to go to college, they need to be a welder, an electrician to get a certificate this. How do we change that conversation where the vernacular is the same? Because I'm saying the same thing you are, but there are kids that we work with that need to get a certificate and not a 4-year degree. So anyway.
Well, first of all, that was vocational schools, that's college. So part of it, we have to change the nomenclature, right? Because this is what we found out when they were going, we talked to kids, say, well, you can go become a welder, plumber, whatever. They said, but that's college. And they looked at me and said, so I'll be going to college? It was amazing how these kids in high school, I said, their face brightens up. So it's smart, so we have to change the nomenclature, that's number one. Number two, we have to work with our ATCs, CTCs in our high schools better with our KCTCS schools. I won't just say you, it's all of them. But we have to, because you may be able to go to one of those CTCs or ATCs and get something while you're in high school, but you're quickly going to have to be skilled up. So it won't last you very long in that regard. So we have to be in partnerships, in my opinion, to do that. But first of all, we've got to change the nomenclature to let people know that we do it. But we also have to, in those courses, in those degrees or those certificates, when they get it, 4-year institutions need to say, how can I really match up to that to where I'm not going to cost you any loss of time if you want to come to a 4-year institution? There's a lot more answer than that, but I know we're limited. Yeah.
Great presentation, Dr. Thompson. Shifting slightly, but still relevant. Could you talk in general about the student loan crisis and also specifically about the loan forgiveness that was announced yesterday?
Absolutely, and at was on TV, y'all probably heard of OKT talking about it. You know, Kentucky's really interesting. But let me say this before we start, because people don't put it fully in context. If you borrow money in a student loan with the way that's set up and you get a credential that matters, that pays, you have made an investment. That is one of the best things you've ever done. So student loans aren't bad, period. That's been the wrong thing. Student loans are bad if somehow they don't get the credential or they overborrow to then get a credential that doesn't allow them to even have a life. So we need to really shape that up. And so in Kentucky, our average is about $28,000. If you are a person of color, it's about $30,000. I think there's predatory people out there we have to watch out for. What President Biden did yesterday, 2 things, and I'll talk on both quickly, I know I'm out of time. One is the $10,000 he gave. If you made under $125,000 or $350 or something for a couple, $125,000, you got the first $10,000 loan, forget it. If you are Pell eligible, in other words, if you're low income, you get another $10,000. So in Kentucky, all of that affects about 600,000 borrowers. Now, it works for some. Now, you're going to have people like my kids borrowed money that I paid off. But anyway, that's not the point. You know, some people are saying, well, I wish I had that before. Well, it is what it is now. I do believe this. I do believe there's going to be a lot of political rhetoric about it. I may have some of my own feelings about it. It won't be political, though, because in this case, this will help more low-income families and students of color at a greater level. I mean, not former students of color, and many will be able to get out of debt, and some will be able to hopefully come back to school.
Cliff Delgan, I want to go back to the vocational college. The company I work for, we work with a lot of specialty contractors, most of whom are very skilled at what they were doing, but we could tell they were struggling. And then one after another, they said, well, I've turned the administration over to my wife. We said, thank God, your company might survive. And then technical training, used to call vocational training, are they also getting business training?
Excellent question. We are going to have to incorporate in all of our technical programs more of those employability skills, and we have to do it in high school too. And what I mean that, we need to create not just financial literacy, but a financial system that would allow them to know how to do it. We need to develop more entrepreneurs, even if they're working for someone else. how to manage that. So our goal is to incorporate, as we have in JCTC, more of these employability skill stuff beyond the technical skill stuff. So that is an excellent question. So it's not just business as in the old fashioned, but it's what I call applied business, practical business. How, in fact, do you not go broke? I mean, or how do you really build your life of wealth as you're working and getting an employment check?
President Thompson, thank you very much. Neville Blakemore. So I was delighted as a history major to hear about that, about liberal arts. What's the, I'm sure we can all agree that history is the best major, but what's the theory on 15 years out, why a liberal arts advances beyond the technical?
Well, what you find is that the liberal arts area builds those employability skills. They'll teach you how to communicate, teach you how to write, they'll teach you how to work in a communal setting. They teach you how to work with people of different backgrounds, right? And I'm not saying any of those bad. I'm saying that we should take those liberal arts skills and put it in those technical programs. But I think we should also, every liberal arts major should have a micro-credential in coding or something. I'm saying that we need to be mixing a lot of these things together. So that's what we see. They go into management more often than those in technical, highly skilled areas. They tend to stay in those places more, whereas liberal arts tend to move into management more, so you see the difference. By the way, a quick, I'll just get, how many people in America are over 6 feet tall? Who knows, percentage? Yeah. Let me tell you, 15%. How many people are in corporate CEO roles that are over 6 feet tall? 60%, actually. So the point being is we sometimes stereotype and start saying stuff without ever really considering it. That's why we've done this with liberal arts. Say, well, you know, these jobs aren't going to pay. Because we tend to look at 5 years out. But if you look at the life of the employment with a college degree, it works out. That doesn't mean the technical folks lose their space. They don't. They tend to not go in management as much.
President Walt's going to cut me off because I'm not 6 feet tall.
I am going to cut you off, Tom, so sorry. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
No. I said sorry.
Sit down, Tom.
Maybe Dr. Thompson will stay and hear your question in a second. I mean, we're already running behind. We've got announcements here in a second. Anybody that needs to leave, please do. But thank you for coming today. We have made a contribution in your honor into the West Louisville Housing Initiative. And you heard us talk about that a minute ago. But your great work, what we're doing, this is a good deal. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And glad you're here. Can we come over here to get this?
Yeah. Well,
Come out.
we're going to give Rotary some love.
And blame me, Dr. Thompson actually has to be at the fairgrounds testifying at noon, so it's a little bit past noon.
Thank you all so much.
Anybody that needs to leave, we understand. That's good. Thank you all. We had a great, we still got announcements, but we had a great 2 speakers. I want to make sure Julie gets thanked because she was the linchpin to get our governor. And thank you. Yes. And everybody can stay late, right, to hear from our governor, right? Everybody can, and they did. Thank you. Now, for our announcements, we have one of the best darn presidents of all time. John Bush is going to make our announcements, and then we'll finish up. Thank you, John.
Thank you, President Walt. The Honor Flight Bluegrass is making its final flight of 2022 on Wednesday, September the 7th. Our Rotary ground crew is seeking additional volunteers. If you'd like to participate in that, please see Jerry Martin, Sophia Fisher, or Larry Sloan for more information. Also, please register for our golf shamble at Glen Oaks Country Club on September the 26th. It's going to be a great time. Also, please check out the new events and opportunities section of Sparks and join our new Facebook group. And finally, if you haven't completed the committee interest survey, please click the link in yesterday's Sparks and do so soon. Next week, we're honored to have Cleo Battle, President and CEO of Global Tourism, to speak with us about Bourbon Heritage Month. President Walt, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And now, as we're closing out Walt's words of wisdom, these are all have to do with leadership and education. The function of university is not simply to teach breadwinning or to furnish teachers for public schools or to be a center of polite society. It's above all to be the organ that fine adjustment between real life and the growing knowledge of life, an adjustment which forms the secret of our civilization, W.E.B. Du Bois. Education is kindling a flame, not filling of a vessel. Socrates. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And lastly, an education, once given and received, is a gift that can never be taken away. That's one from me. Anyway, great having everybody here, a lot of energy, great meeting, thank you, we are adjourned. Oh yes, we have our Rotary table up here. If you're interested in Rotary, please come over here with Craig.